Hey everybody, welcome to our Mahoning Matters Sports Show. I'm Chris, the editor of Mahoning Matters. I've got Mike Brown, a sports writer, with me today. Mike, how you doing?
Chris, I'm doing great as always.
Great. Hey, if I sound a little bit different, I'm talking to our listeners here. Fighting a little bit of a cold, so plain hurt, but we should be okay. But if you're wondering out there why I sound a little different today, that's what's going on. But Mike, sports is continuing. We are in, middle August now. Wow. Where has life gone? The summer
Yep.
is about over. Exciting times. Lots of, more playoff baseball is coming up soon, and the football season's starting. Let's start out. Tell me about the scrimmage you went to last week. A playoff preview, as we called it. Struthers against West Branch. What did you see there?
Yeah, Chris, these are two teams that was over at Struthers, and these are two teams that went pretty deep in the playoffs last year and have most of their teams back. West Branch returns 20 of their 22 starters, and I think Struthers isn't too far behind that. And different contrasting styles. Struthers has a great running attack, a couple thousand-yard rushers. West Branch likes to throw it, and although they have a quarterback this year who's a pretty good runner too, real good runner as a matter of fact. So that was interesting. It ended up 2-2. And again, it's scrimmages. I think they both rested a lot of starters. I heard West Branch rested like 7 of their 20 starters or 22 starters in that game. And I think Struthers rested a few kids or only played like one series and stuff like that. So it's hard to get a gauge on a scrimmage, but those were two good teams going at it. And I think, it might be 11 weeks from now or 12 weeks from now, those two could match up again in the playoffs. I think they're two of the better teams. And that region, Division 4, Region 13, is absolutely loaded. You've got two defending state champs in that region this year. And you got Cleveland Glenville, and then you got Lake County Perry, who moved up. They went from Division 5 to Division 4, and they're both in that region with Struthers and Branch and Mooney and all those teams. So that region is absolutely loaded, Chris. That should be really interesting to see how that all plays out after 10 weeks of the regular season.
Yeah, a very tough, division to
Oh,
say
my
the
goodness.
least.
Two defending state champs in your region. It's like, wow.
Well, let's talk a little about Struthers. Always impressed. They have a good defense,
Yep.
good running game.
Oh, yeah.
They have a tough offensive line. How do those elements look from what you saw during the scrimmage?
Yeah, they look real good on both lines. They're quick. Struthers is quick. And I think they've got most of those guys back from last year. And, they took it to the regional final. They lost to Canton South. I covered that game for Mahoning Matters. They lost in the regional final to Canton South. Now, Canton South lost their great quarterback. He graduated. But Struthers went toe-to-toe for quite a while in that game. And they've got all that team back. So I think they're going to be really, really good again.
Yeah, it's just a big, physical, tough team, which is good.
Yep.
West Branch, the question we had was they lost their quarterback.
Yeah.
You said they had a converted receiver playing quarterback. I saw you play a little bit. How did he look when you played?
Jeremiah Thomas, you know what they did? He wasn't allowed to run in the scrimmage. And what they were doing, the officials were kind of controlling that, where if a lineman even got close to the quarterback, they'd blow the whistle and that play was dead. So it really wasn't a true indication of what will happen in a regular season game. But they really like Jeremiah Thomas. He's probably one of the better athletes that have walked those halls at West Branch. And, again, he's had, I think he's been a receiver the last 2 years. I'm pretty sure he's got close to 700 to 800 yards receiving last year. Now he moves over to quarterback, and he reminds me a lot of Drew DeShields in the way he can run. He's slippery. He breaks tackles. He's really fast. He's one of those kids that can elevate his game when things are on the line. He can find another level, and they really have a true dual threat with him at quarterback this year. So he's a left-hander, so that'll be, it's funny, that'll be more of a left-handed offense with him. So I'll be anxious to see how that works out, but they think a lot of him.
His arm looked pretty good, like in the throws he made?
Yeah, oh yeah, he had a 65-yard touchdown pass against Struthers the other day. And he's another in those long line of West Branch quarterback. They just keep cranking them out in Beloit.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds good. So we got more scrimmages coming.
Yep.
You said
I want to go see the South Range Raiders. I think they're going to go against West Branch on Friday night in Beloit. So I'm pretty confident I'm going to go see that. But we get a chance to see South Range. And you talk about a great program. I think when I did some stats 2 years ago of all the Mahoning County public schools, I believe South Range has the best historical winning percentage of anybody in Mahoning County for a public school in football. That's how
Yeah.
good their program has been. And they won a state title. Was it 2 years ago? And they're good. They're really good. And I don't expect to see anything other than a greatness again there this year from the Raiders.
Yeah, they're losing a couple of key players that are really good running back. It'd be good to see
Yeah,
what their depth's like. You know what I mean?
they just plug new guys in, Chris,
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
just
it's
keep
kind of like
on
the
going.
West Branch deal.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So it should be interesting. And man, under 2 weeks the season starts.
Yes, it does.
We've got extra coverage plan of each game. You'll be able to vote on the poll. And Mike and I are trying to figure out how we can do a podcast that night. So you can have the podcast detailing the game the day after the game, as well as your first opportunity to vote on a player of the week poll. All of that's coming back. We're excited about all that stuff. It should be fun. Let's talk a little bit about the NFL. Preseason games started. We didn't talk about how we were going to do this. Let's first talk about what happened last week and give a short preview of the upcoming game. You had the Steelers first. Didn't get to see the whole game. I read a lot about it. Saw a couple podcasts. I'll be honest, it was kind of a big bowl of meh. You said this beforehand. The preseason's kind of got a little funky
It is.
where each game, obviously the scores don't matter, but really, even when you look at how you evaluate each player, a lot of that depends on who's playing. Justin Fields started for the Steelers. First time center under him. A couple like missed snaps. Fields looked okay in passing. He wasn't entirely happy. They didn't score any points with Fields. He still was 5 for 6, so it wasn't a horrible embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when you don't have the key guys playing,
Right.
it's hard for me to say, wow, Mike, Justin Fields is fantastic or Justin Fields stinks. I mean, there's no way of telling. So it was nice seeing the guys play. I just don't know what to make of it. I mean, I'm not going to tell you Justin Fields is the answer quarterback, but I don't think there's anything from Friday to say Justin Fields stunk. It was just,
Yep.
It was a game. It was out
Until
there.
you get the number ones playing a full game, it's guesswork. It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
I like you and I were talking off the air, Chris. I don't even know if you get anything from an exhibition football season anymore now because you have, high priced free agents, and I understand they want to jeopardize their careers. So this week the Browns are going to play their starters. I think this will be the game they play, probably a half, and that's all they'll see probably in preseason. The rest of these guys we're seeing are guys who will be backups at best and guys who won't make the team. A lot of these, the guys who played the other day for the Browns, a lot of those guys probably won't be with them or could be on their practice squads at best, something like that. So it's really hard. And I know the NFL wants to add another regular season game. I'm probably all for that if they take away another exhibition game and add another regular season game because we're not seeing much from these exhibition games. It's, and it's getting worse, I think. It's not. It used to be some of your stars would play years ago. Some of your stars would play a few games. That's really not the case much anymore. So, and like the Browns game last weekend, they panned the stands. They were playing in the 4:00 in the afternoon in August, an exhibition game, and hardly anybody in the stands. I'm sure that's uncomfortable for the players to play in the August heat, an afternoon exhibition game. So I'll be anxiously moving forward what the NFL does. I think they will eventually add another game and take away another exhibition game, and I'm all for that.
Yeah, a couple of notes I had in the Steelers. It was interesting. One beat where I trust, I heard some comments he had after the game. He said it was interesting. In the past with the Steelers, I just think they haven't had that many different offensive coaches during Big Ben's time.
No.
They got to a place where Big Ben didn't have to play much in the preseason. It's changed. I mean, you're not really definite on who your quarterback is.
Right.
There is some argument on the Steelers camp that they say, wow, maybe our main guy should play a little bit more. Just think of it. They have a new offensive coach this year. They have a totally new quarterback room. Sometimes you sit there and say, okay, you've got one backup coming in, or you got a new starter. Literally, all three of their guys, and they've got a fourth rookie guy in there. They're different from last year. And, the running backs are the same, but the receivers are mostly different. And, again, there's promise. They could be good. I just want to see them play a little bit more.
Right.
I'm okay with Russell Wilson getting the start for the year. He hasn't been able to play yet. I'd like to see him play a little bit in the preseason, just get used to the team.
Sure. Yep. That's why I think a lot of times, and it's this way for all these teams now. I can't think of too many that play their starters more than a game or a half of one exhibition game. So really, your week 1 and week 2 regular season games are really like exhibition games, but at least the starters for all these teams are playing 4 quarters in those games. But then, for some of these teams that are even further behind, I think, those first 2 games might not be indicative of the kind of season you're going to have, but it might put you behind the 8 ball if you lose games like that early. So I would certainly favor adding more regular season games and less exhibition games. So, we can cut to the chase, get to the regular season, and these guys will be playing full games.
Every team takes different. Like, I know the Steelers' their offense. Fields had 3 series, but he had different guys playing with him.
Yep.
The defense on the other end, and again, the Steelers' defense is a little bit more set up.
Oh, sure.
They had like 6 or 7 guys that just didn't play at all. So the Texans had their top quarterback, C.J. Stroud, play a series. So Stroud marched the Texans right down the field and scored the Steelers, which is a little troubling. Yeah. But considering the fact that the 3 or 4 top guys in the Steelers didn't play at all, how do you determine that?
Yes, what I'm talking about. Yep.
So it's tough. I don't know. For the Steelers, again, I wouldn't take this game to be, wow, they're in trouble. I wouldn't, though, fold up shop at all. It's going to be a long time. This week they got the Bills coming up. It's at Buffalo, Saturday night game. Let's just see what happens. Again, the games don't mean anything in terms of the scores. I'm just looking to see, can I see some of these guys the new guys play, and just see what happens. I want to talk about this briefly. The Brandon Ayuk situation has been another thing that's been kind of hanging over Steelers over the past week. There's arguments to be made both ways. I still think the Steelers need a little bit of help at receiver. I think having 2 solid receivers could really make your team a lot better. Guys like Van Jefferson, I hear, has played pretty well. But I think a mix of Ayuk and George Pickens can be good. I know you don't want to give up the farm. I know the Steelers like the draft picks, but where can the Steelers be with Ayuk? I had on my personal podcast, shared here on Mahoning Matters, Nick Fairbaugh from Penn Live came on, and he's over with the Steelers every day. The one thing that we were talking about that made me wonder is I said, look, if they got Ayuk, what can you expect from the Steelers? Does the Chiefs still look like a world beaters this year? Mm-hmm. And he's like, with Ayuk, they may win a playoff game or 2. And that's kind of where he's at. And I think the Steelers need to figure out what's really important to them. It's important to make that leap. Maybe with Ayuk, you can, upset the Chiefs or anything. You might have a better chance of doing that. Mm-hmm. What do they need to do? And that might be worth a first-round pick. A couple of years ago, they traded a first-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And at the time, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
For a first-round pick, that's hard to give up. That's tough to give up.
Right.
But for a player like that, it's worth it. So it's hard to see. Who knows anymore? It makes it tough, but I think the Steelers just kind of need to range to see how close they think they are. And I think with a receiver, I think they can make the next step forward.
I agree with that. Partly. Yep.
And I agree with you. I think they made some very significant improvements when you look at some of the guys that got on the offseason. I think, though, they took a step back at receiver. In today's NFL, you need to have a good passing game. And
that's true.
I think they have a better quarterback room today than they did last year with Wilson and Fields.
Yep.
But, again, whoever your quarterback is, if you had in their prime Dan Marino as your quarterback, you still need receivers to go with it. And the receivers weren't that great last year, and they're taking a step back this year. So we'll definitely see what happens. the Browns, you were telling me about this beforehand, Mike, that they just didn't look
Nope.
too into the game. They lost 23-10
Nope.
to the Packers. I wouldn't panic after that game. I didn't see that game either, but from what I read, first game of 3, the Browns wouldn't play that many guys. Yeah, you want the guys to be a little bit more energized, more with it and everything. I just don't know what to expect. I mean, maybe going to the game, they really sat there and they said, hey, we want to see what this guy looks like. But, I'm starting to feel what you're feeling in terms of the preseason games. I mean, what are you trying to get out of them? Is it a game you have to play? Where they really looking at it and saying, hey, we want to see what Tyler Huntley looks like or wherever else the case might be. I guess maybe the broader question we need to ask is, what's the goal that the Browns want to have in the preseason? I mean, I'm sure there's some young guys who want to see if they can play or not. I don't know what outstanding questions you have. I mean, I guess for me, being a non-Browns fan, I would have to really say, where's Deshaun Watson at? And that doesn't mean, but that doesn't mean you play Deshaun Watson a lot in the preseason. But, I mean, that's right now the number one question in my mind of the Browns. Can Deshaun Watson get back to All-Pro Deshaun Watson? So I don't know, Mike. We may just need to take the next 3 weeks in the NFL preseason, just try to get through it. Maybe miss a game or two because it's not going to be good, and it's hard to see.
Getting back to Deshaun Watson, I think that's the guy who needs to play. They need to find out how he's progressing from the injury. There's a guy, think about it, who's hardly played many games in the last 3 years, Chris. So it's like, I think there's a guy, and I realize you're taking that chance in an exhibition game, but there's a guy I think that needs to get some reps in an exhibition game and find out, how it is. If you remember last year when he started getting back into a rhythm a little bit, he had played some games and he fell into a rhythm, and then he got injured again, and that was the end of that. But I think that's a guy that needs to play. So now, how much he's going to play this weekend against Minnesota, we'll find out. I know they're going to play their starters for a while this weekend, so we'll see how that goes. But and then also other Browns news: the Browns made a trade today, Chris. I don't know if you saw that. They've got Nick Harris back. They lost up center Luke Wepler in the exhibition game, I believe, an ankle injury the other day. So they made a trade today with Seattle and got Nick Harris back, and he'll be their backup center. And they need that because I don't know the situation with Wepler if he will be done for the year or if that's a temporary thing, but they got or more than a temporary thing, but it's good to get Harris back. They were high on him, and so they got him back for I believe it was a late round draft. He swapped some late round draft picks, so that's a good move for the Browns. I think that gives them some depth at a very important position on their line.
Well, I think a couple of things. When you trade for it, Nick Harris, you're saying no. Their center's going to be gone for a while. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be for a whole year.
Yes, that looked like a pretty serious ankle injury. Yep.
Yeah, but he's going to miss time. I think that definitely sends that message. To answer your other question, I'm seeing via Newsweek article that appeared today. Apparently, Kevin Stefanski said Watson will play in week 3 of the preseason. Okay. He'll get some time in there. Apparently, he just he just got cleared for contact. They're saying.
I'm surprised at that because I had heard that they were going to play some of their starters this week, and I thought for sure that he would play. So maybe they're going to play some starters this game and the next game. That obviously tells me they're going to. If they're going to start him in their third preseason game. So I don't know. I just think the guy needs to get some reps. I really do.
Oh, and I think the other thing that's going to be kind of weird is, and I think the Browns are sending a message. I mean, their quarterback room, it's deep, which is good. I think you need to have a deep quarterback room. But, we talked about this last week. You've got Jameis Winston. And, again, I'll say it. I think they made a mistake in not bringing back Joe Flacco.
Yeah,
I hear that Jameis Winston's kind of reformed his career. He's not like a good guy to have in the locker room. Mm-hmm. I hear he can play. I mean, he's not a detriment when he plays. I think Joe Flacco's a better quarterback. I'll just say it. And I think the Colts, if Anthony Richardson gets hurt, they're not in bad shape at all for Joe Flacco behind them.
Right, I agree.
But not just Winston, but you bring out Tyler Huntley. who I wouldn't call him a franchise quarterback, but one year when he replaced Lamar Jackson, Huntley was like the third alternate for a Pro Bowl. He went to a Pro Bowl. Now, again, you shouldn't hope that you have to play Huntley because you're not probably going to have a great year. But you've got 3 or 4 guys that could probably start in the NFL, and you could sit there and say, well, that's a great problem to have. But then the other axiom is, hey, if you have 2 or 3 starting quarterbacks, you really have anybody,
Yeah.
So
well, I think they were mentioning this the other day with that fourth quarter because they have 4 quarterbacks who can run and pass, Chris. And I think what they're doing, they mentioned this the other day, that at the waiver wire time, if a team has an injury for the quarterback and they're looking for a backup quarterback, the Browns might be able to get some for one of those other quarterbacks if they, if they're carrying 4 and you want to put one on the practice squad, you might get a late round pick for one of those other quarterbacks. So that I wouldn't rule that out in the weeks moving forward. Something like that may happen.
I mean, a hot take. I would be surprised. I mean, if they kept their 4 and put one on the practice squad, you're probably looking at Dorian Thompson-Robinson, as a guy.
Yep.
But I can't imagine he's going to stay on the practice squad. I mean, some team would look at him and say,
Yep.
all right, he could be our third quarterback. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, he's not going to be around the front long. And if Tyler Huntley gets dropped, if I'm the Steelers, I would get him. I mean, he'd be my third quarterback.
That's why the Browns they think the Browns may hold a guy like that, and you may have some quarterback team that has a guy go down, and they need a backup quarterback or a number 3 quarterback, and they might give you a late round pick for a guy like that.
Yeah, it's not a bad philosophy. You get a day 2 or day 3 pick, but I think the broader question is Deshaun the guy? And maybe the thought with having another quarterback like Huntley come in is if you figure out he's not the guy, at least you got another guy in the mix that could be in. I mean, the Browns are going to start Watson. I think they're going to run the man with him. But what happens if he falters? I don't know. And you're right.
I don't think he'll falter, but I do think he just needs to get reps, like I said. And, there may be some rust again coming back from another injury. So I just think you need to get the guy reps. And what's going to happen is he's probably going to get his reps in regular season games. So, and again, goes back to what I was talking about, where you got guys finally getting their first team reps in a regular season game where it's going to take a few games to knock the rust off. And whether we're talking about quarterback or any other position, because guys haven't played much in the exhibition season. And
here's the
Cowboys in their opener. So that's not an easy opener. I mean, it's in Cleveland, but that's not an easy task.
And here's the other problem. Watson's contract, there's other quarterbacks making more than he does right now. But still, the contract he has, he's got to produce with that contract.
Right, yeah. Yep.
It's tough.
Yep.
All right. You wanted to talk about the Guardians. And going into next weekend, Guardians, they host Milwaukee Brewers. Brewers are first place.
Yeah.
Man, Guardians got to get moving.
Yeah, they do. They have hit the wall scoring runs. That when they had that drought before the All-Star break, and then they came out of the All-Star break and they were starting to score runs again, and now they've slipped back. They were fortunate to come out of Minnesota with a split, I thought, because they lost those first 2 games of that series, and then they got it done those last 2 games. They're 3.5 up, but I tell you what, they've got tough schedule. The Brew Crew's good. They got them coming in this weekend in Cleveland, and the Yankees on the heel of that. So they've got they're 3.5 up right now as we speak. But you got a couple teams chomping at the bit behind them. So it's going to be a real interesting race here the rest of this Major League Baseball season to see if they can fend off those teams like Kansas City and Minnesota, because those teams are hard charged. I think. The last I checked with the Guardians, I think they were something like 4-6 in their last 10 games. So, they need to start scoring runs. They need, they've only been scoring like 2 and 3 runs a lot of games. And, they are a team that kind of lives and dies with the home run. But they need to get that offense going again.
Well, and we're recording this early in the week before the series against the Cubs. But regardless of what happened to the Cubs, the Brewers and Yankees, man, key series at home. If they can't win, it's going to be rough.
That's a great story in Cleveland. I just think that They just need to get it going offensively again. Score enough. They're getting enough good pitching, even though they've had a ton of injuries this year. They're pitchers, but I think they're getting enough good pitching where if they just get a little bit more scoring, they can right that ship. And I sure as heck don't want to see all the work that they've put in so far to stay in first place all year go for naught in like the last month of the season. So because Minnesota, so's Kansas City, they're right there. So and they've got, I was just checking, they've got Minnesota coming in for 4 down the road in Cleveland. That's going to be a huge series later on in the season here. Huge series.
Very good. Hey, wanted to finish off. We should have mentioned this earlier. We always love seeing how our former young sensei people do in the pros. Had a lot of stories last year talking about Jaleel McLaughlin. Remember, he was a guy undrafted free agent, one of the fastest running backs in the draft. Just didn't get a chance to get drafted. He got signed as an undrafted free agent by the Broncos. A lot of questions: is he going to make the team? Whatever the case might be, he made the team. He looked really good. He was the third string running back on the Broncos last year. Chances to advance, up the scale. He had a pretty good preseason opener. The Broncos defeated the Colts 34-30. Jaleel McLaughlin 7 carries for 30 yards. He also had 2 catches for 26 yards. A good game for Jaleel. Javonte Williams is number 1 back there, but when McLaughlin has had a chance to play, he's looked good. So we'll see how he does for Denver. Tennessee, another long shot free agent. He actually came, if I remember right, as a he got signed right after the draft, but Bryce Oliver. He had 2 catches for 16 yards over the weekend. Titans defeated the 49ers 17-13. You never know. I'm liking how these guys are getting a chance to play and to contribute when they get called on.
Absolutely. And when you think about the history of YSU football, a lot of guys have gone on to the NFL and been very productive. So hopefully that continues here.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I know Tennessee made a couple wide receiver additions, most notably Calvin Ridley. But maybe Oliver makes it as a 4th or 5th receiver. It'll be interesting to see. It's not out of the question. I'll put it that way. I don't have context in the Titans organization. I can't tell you what the receiver room looks like. I think it's possible he can make the team somewhere.
Yeah, and the nice thing is you can put 16 guys on your practice squad now, so that opens up a lot more opportunities for guys.
Yeah. So it'll be good. We got to definitely root on Jaleel and Bryce as the preseason continues. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, Mike, I got to take some medicine, man. I've been hacking, so we'll get better. But thank you again for your time, and thanks for checking out the sports, everyone. Have a great day.